Your soulmate left you a secret love letter inside a sealed evidence archive, and tomorrow morning the entire file will be permanently erased. The letter was not written yesterday, and it was not created to pull you back through guilt. It was written during the exact week when your soulmate suddenly stopped answering, disappeared from the places where you expected to see them, and allowed you to believe their feelings had changed. For months, you assumed they chose silence because loving you had become inconvenient. You replayed the final conversation, searched for mistakes, and wondered whether another person had quietly replaced you. But the first sentence of the hidden letter reveals a truth you were never meant to discover. I did not leave because I stopped loving you. I left because someone threatened to destroy your future unless I accepted responsibility for something neither of us had done. The archive was discovered by a legal assistant closing an old case connected to your soulmate's former workplace, family business, or professional circle. Most of the files were scheduled for routine destruction after the final agreement expired. The assistant noticed a document marked with your full name and the words, "Release only after all restrictions end." The deadline ends tomorrow. Once the system resets, the letter, supporting recordings, and original documents will disappear with everything else. The assistant contacted you because your soulmate had included written permission stating that you were the rightful recipient. No payment is required. No password, financial information, or dangerous action is being requested. The urgency exists for one reason: evidence that was hidden for years has reached the final day of its preservation. Your soulmate begins by apologizing for the way the silence made you question yourself. They knew you would search for an explanation inside your own behavior because you were always willing to examine your mistakes before accusing someone else. They knew you might believe you had asked for too much, spoken too honestly, or failed to remain patient. They say that was the part that hurt them most while writing. They could imagine you turning their disappearance into proof that your love had been foolish. Yet they were legally and emotionally trapped inside an agreement that prohibited contact with you. Breaking it would not only have created consequences for them. Your name would have been added to an investigation designed to make you appear responsible for information you never possessed. Everything began with a document that went missing shortly before your connection became serious. The document contained private financial records, internal plans, or evidence of misconduct involving powerful people around your soulmate. Someone copied it and sent portions to an outside authority. The leak threatened reputations, money, and positions that several individuals had spent years protecting. Your soulmate was questioned because they had access. You were questioned indirectly because people knew you had become emotionally close to them. Someone claimed your influence had encouraged your soulmate to expose the truth. You had no involvement. You did not know the document existed. But a person connected to the organization had seen you waiting outside the building one evening. The meeting was ordinary. Your soulmate had invited you because they needed support after a difficult day. A security photograph showed you entering the lobby, and someone decided the image could be used to create a convincing story. They claimed your soulmate handed you confidential information during that meeting. No photograph showed an exchange because none occurred, but the timing was enough to create suspicion. Your soulmate was called into a private room and shown a prepared statement. The statement said they had copied the document alone and acted without assistance. If they signed it, the organization would handle the matter internally, protect your name, and avoid contacting your employer, family, or public authorities. If they refused, investigators would begin examining your phone, email, work history, and personal relationships. The people in the room said innocence would not protect you from the damage of being publicly connected to the accusation. Even after the truth emerged, opportunities could disappear and relationships could be permanently affected. Your soulmate asked for time. They were given one night. That evening, they tried to call you 3 times. You may remember missed calls appearing and disappearing, or perhaps you remember receiving a brief message that said, "Whatever happens next, please believe that you mattered." You responded with concern, but no answer came. Your soulmate wanted to explain everything. They wanted to ask whether you were willing to face the situation together. But every time they imagined your name entering the case, fear stopped them. They had seen powerful people control narratives before. They knew the organization could not easily prove you were involved, but proof was not their only weapon. Rumors, delays, investigations, and professional pressure could exhaust you until protecting yourself became impossible. Your soulmate returned the following morning and signed the statement. They accepted responsibility for copying the document, even though someone else had done it. In exchange, the organization agreed to remove your name from all internal records, avoid contacting you, and keep the matter private. Your soulmate was required to resign, surrender devices, and sign a strict agreement preventing them from discussing the case with anyone connected to it. A particular clause prohibited contact with you because the organization argued that any communication could be interpreted as coordination between 2 suspected people. Your soulmate was told that if they attempted to explain the truth, the protection surrounding your name would end. This is why they disappeared. It was not because another person became more important. It was not because the connection frightened them. It was because they believed silence was the only way to prevent a false accusation from entering your life. The letter admits that this decision was not entirely noble. Your soulmate also acted from pride. They could not bear the idea of you seeing them frightened, unemployed, publicly questioned, and unable to control what happened next. They had always wanted to appear strong around you. You saw emotional parts of them no one else understood, but they still hid the moments when life became unmanageable. Signing the agreement allowed them to tell themselves they were protecting you, while also avoiding the vulnerability of admitting that they needed support. They say, "I called my silence a sacrifice because that sounded better than admitting I was terrified." The distinction matters. Your soulmate does not want the letter to romanticize their decision. They protected your name, but they also removed your freedom to decide whether you wanted to remain. They decided that losing them would hurt you less than facing uncertainty beside them. They made a choice involving your heart without allowing your heart a voice. The first week after signing, your soulmate believed the separation would be temporary. They thought the investigation would close quickly, the agreement would be lifted, and they could return with the complete explanation. They saved every message you sent. They listened to voice notes without responding and watched your concern become confusion. You asked whether they were safe. You asked whether someone had pressured them. You said you would accept the truth, even if the truth was that they no longer wanted you. They could not answer. The agreement required all communication to be monitored. Their phone had been replaced by a device controlled through the organization. Personal accounts were examined. When your messages appeared, a representative reminded them that contact could reopen your involvement. Your soulmate deleted notifications while someone watched, then recovered the words later through backups they secretly preserved. One message from you remained inside the archive. It says, "I do not know what happened, but I know the person I loved would not disappear like this without a reason. I will not chase you forever, but I hope one day you trust me enough to tell me the truth." Your soulmate read those words hundreds of times. They began writing the secret letter that same night. The original version was only 2 pages. It explained the accusation, the agreement, and the reason for leaving. Your soulmate planned to give it to you once the restrictions ended. But the case continued growing. New people were questioned. Records were moved. The organization repeatedly extended confidentiality terms, claiming public exposure could damage ongoing negotiations. Your soulmate's life remained frozen inside a decision they had believed would last only a few months. During that period, another person appeared publicly beside them. This may be the person you believed replaced you. The organization assigned a colleague or family associate to remain close to your soulmate, help manage the legal process, and ensure they followed the agreement. From the outside, the arrangement looked personal. They attended meetings together, traveled to offices, and were photographed entering restaurants after long legal appointments. When you saw those images, you assumed your soulmate had found comfort somewhere else. The truth was more complicated. The person knew the accusation was false, but they did not know the identity of the actual person responsible. At first, they treated your soulmate with professional distance. Over time, they became supportive. They saw how deeply the separation affected them and occasionally encouraged them to contact you despite the risk. Your soulmate refused because they continued believing the agreement was protecting you. Rumors grew around the two of them. Someone inside the organization encouraged those rumors because a new relationship made your soulmate's separation from you appear ordinary. If the public believed they had simply moved on, no one would question why contact stopped immediately after the investigation began. Your soulmate did not correct the rumors. That silence became another betrayal of your trust. They say in the letter, "I allowed you to think someone else had taken your place because explaining why they were beside me would have exposed the case. But I understand now that I could have protected your name without allowing your heart to be publicly humiliated." There was never a romantic relationship. The colleague eventually left the organization after discovering that information connected to the case had been altered. Before leaving, they copied several files, including the original security footage from the night you visited the building. The complete footage showed you entering the lobby empty-handed and leaving without receiving anything. It showed your soulmate meeting you only in a public seating area. The conversation lasted 23 minutes. No documents changed hands. The person responsible for the leak had accessed the records on another floor while both of you were visible together downstairs. Your presence had become the perfect distraction. While investigators focused upon the convenient story involving you and your soulmate, the real person copied the files without attracting attention. The colleague sent this footage to your soulmate anonymously. It arrived almost a year after the false confession was signed. Your soulmate immediately brought it to the lawyer responsible for the agreement. They expected the case to collapse and your name to remain permanently cleared. Instead, the lawyer warned them that exposing the footage could reveal that the organization knowingly pressured an innocent person into signing a false statement. The consequences would affect senior leaders, financial settlements, and ongoing business arrangements. Your soulmate was offered a second agreement: remain silent for a fixed period, and when that period ended, all evidence would be released to them. Refuse, and the organization would claim the footage had been altered. Your soulmate refused to sign immediately. For the first time, they decided protection through silence had already cost too much. They demanded the right to contact you. The organization responded by showing them a screenshot of your life. You appeared to be smiling beside someone new. Perhaps it was a friend, colleague, or person who had begun showing romantic interest. The representative said you had clearly moved forward and that contacting you now would only drag you into an old scandal. The image made your soulmate hesitate. They thought perhaps their silence had already achieved its purpose. You looked peaceful. You appeared to have rebuilt what their disappearance had damaged. Re-entering your life with legal chaos seemed selfish. They signed the second agreement. This is the decision they regret most. The first agreement was signed under immediate fear. The second was signed after they had evidence and another opportunity to choose courage. They allowed one photograph to decide what you wanted without asking you. They told themselves they were respecting your new life, but part of them was afraid you would refuse to forgive the original silence. Remaining legally restricted protected them from discovering whether they had lost you permanently. The secret letter became longer. Your soulmate added an explanation for the second agreement, then wrote a section apologizing for every assumption they made about your life. They admitted they searched for signs of you from a distance. When you appeared happy, they interpreted happiness as proof that you no longer cared. When you posted something sad, they feared their absence was still hurting you. Every interpretation centered them, even though they had removed themselves from the relationship without explanation. They realized they were continuing an imaginary connection while denying you a real conversation. The letter says, "I kept loving you privately and expected that private love to mean something. But you could not build a life around feelings I refused to make visible." The next revelation concerns the actual person who leaked the document. The hidden footage showed movement on another floor, but the face was unclear. Years later, the colleague who preserved the footage found an access record showing a senior executive's family member entered the secure area using your soulmate's credentials. Your soulmate had once shared a temporary access code with this person during a routine project. The code was never deactivated. The executive's relative copied the documents to expose misconduct, but became frightened after learning how aggressively the organization intended to respond. Rather than admit what they had done, they allowed suspicion to fall upon your soulmate. Their family helped create the story involving you because two emotionally connected people appeared easier to blame than someone protected by authority. The real person eventually confessed privately. They contacted your soulmate and apologized. They said they originally believed exposing the records would protect employees being treated unfairly. When the investigation began, they panicked. Their family promised no serious harm would come to your soulmate if they accepted temporary responsibility. They did not know the agreement would destroy the connection between you. Your soulmate asked why they waited so long. The person said, "Every year I stayed silent made telling the truth more expensive." That sentence appears underlined inside the letter because your soulmate recognized themselves in it. Every month they delayed contacting you made the explanation more difficult. Every year of silence increased the possibility that you would view the truth as an excuse. They had both allowed time to become protection from accountability. The actual leaker agreed to provide a recorded confession, but only if it remained sealed until legal protection became available. That confession is stored beside your soulmate's letter in the archive scheduled for destruction tomorrow. It confirms that you were never involved. It confirms your soulmate did not copy the records. It confirms senior people knew the original accusation was weak. It confirms your soulmate signed the statement after being told your professional life would be examined publicly. The archive contains enough evidence to correct the story completely. But your soulmate does not want the evidence to turn them into a hero. They repeatedly say that taking blame may have protected you from an immediate accusation, yet silence caused another form of harm no legal document measured. You questioned your value. You wondered whether every promise had been false. You may have avoided later relationships because sudden abandonment taught you that closeness could disappear without warning. Your soulmate protected your public name while damaging your private ability to trust. Both truths exist. They ask you not to erase one simply because the other appears loving. The letter includes the message they wanted to send during your birthday. They wrote it but never delivered it. It says they remembered the smallest details about you. How you became quiet before admitting something mattered, how you helped people without announcing it, and how you pretended not to need reassurance while noticing every change in their voice. They bought you a gift that year. It remains inside a storage box with the legal files. The gift is not expensive. It is connected to a conversation you shared before everything changed. Perhaps a book, a necklace, a record, or a small object representing a place you plan to visit. Your soulmate kept it because releasing it felt like accepting that the future had ended. The letter says they now understand that hidden gifts are not proof of dependable love. You never received comfort from an object stored in darkness. Intentions you could not see did not make the silence safer. The gift belongs to you if you want it, but accepting it does not create any obligation. Another document in the archive is a timeline created by your soulmate. It records every attempt you made to contact them, every legal warning they received, and every moment when they considered breaking the agreement. The timeline does not exist to justify them. It exists because they feared memory would eventually soften their responsibility. One entry says, she asked whether I was safe. I chose silence. Another says, I saw her waiting outside the old cafe. I stayed across the street because a representative was following me. This moment may be the most painful revelation. You had returned to a place connected to the relationship months after contact ended. You were not expecting your soulmate with certainty, but perhaps you hoped memory might bring them there. Your soulmate saw you from across the street. They wanted to approach. A person monitoring the agreement was sitting inside a vehicle nearby. Your soulmate remained hidden. You left without knowing they had been close enough to see you. They write, I called that restraint. It was fear wearing the clothes of discipline. The letter refuses to hide behind the legal agreement forever. Your soulmate admits there were moments when consequences might have been worth facing. They could have sought independent legal advice sooner. They could have challenged the organization before accepting extensions. They could have found a safe method to confirm that their silence was not rejection. Instead, they obeyed the system because obedience created temporary certainty. They knew what would happen if they remained silent. They did not know what would happen if they fought. Fear chose the predictable pain. Tomorrow, the final restriction expires. Your soulmate prepared the archive so the letter would reach you automatically, but they added an unusual condition: the files must be opened before the system erases them. They did this because they did not want the evidence following you forever if you chose not to receive it. They believed you deserved one opportunity to learn the truth without being forced to carry the case permanently. The archive will not publish anything. It will not send the documents to your family, workplace, or social media. Only you can preserve the files. Your soulmate has already obtained separate copies needed to clear the legal record. The version addressed to you contains personal letters and explanations that belong to your relationship. You can open it, save it, and decide later what it means. You can also allow it to disappear. The choice is yours because choice was the thing their silence once removed. Your soulmate does not know whether they will contact you directly after the agreement ends. The final paragraph explains why. They are afraid the letter may arrive in a life where they no longer belong. You may be married, committed, healing, or finally free from the questions they created. They do not want to appear and make their regret more important than your stability. They have therefore asked a neutral person to deliver the archive first. If you choose to respond, the letter contains a secure address. You do not need to declare forgiveness or another chance. You can write only, I received it. Your soulmate promises they will not interpret those words as a romantic commitment. If you do not respond, they will understand. This is not another test of whether you truly love them. They already know you love them because the messages preserved inside the archive prove how long you tried to reach the truth. The test now belongs to them. Can they accept your freedom after finally receiving their own? The letter says, I spent years claiming I lost you to circumstances. The truth is that circumstances created the first barrier, but fear helped me maintain it. I loved you, but I did not love you with enough courage. I protected your name from an accusation, then allowed you to accuse yourself of not being worth an explanation. This may be the strongest sentence in the entire archive. Your soulmate understands that people often measure love by sacrifice, yet sacrifice without communication can become emotional control. They decided what pain you should avoid and what pain you could survive. They treated themselves as the only person capable of choosing correctly. They say they should have trusted your strength. Perhaps you would have told them to sign the agreement temporarily. Perhaps you would have chosen to fight beside them. Perhaps you would have stepped away after learning the truth. Any of those outcomes would have been more honest because the decision would have belonged to both of you. The archive also reveals that your soulmate never married or built the serious relationship people assumed. They attempted to move forward, but every connection became limited by a truth they had not resolved. They compared new people with you, then felt guilty because comparison was unfair. They eventually stopped dating, not to remain dramatically devoted, but because they realized they were asking others to build closeness around a heart still organized around secrecy. They began therapy, counseling, or another serious process of examining why they confused suffering silently with loving deeply. They learned that taking responsibility for everyone can sometimes hide a fear of being emotionally known. A person who always rescues others never has to ask whether anyone would remain if they saw the rescuer struggling. You had seen them struggling. That was why losing you felt different. You loved the person beneath the image they protected. Yet when the moment came to reveal their greatest fear, they disappeared behind the image again. They are no longer asking you to admire the sacrifice. They are asking you to examine the evidence and decide what truth gives you peace. Perhaps reading the letter will release you from believing another person replaced you. No one replaced you. The public companion was part of the legal situation, and the rumors were allowed to grow because they protected the organization's story. Perhaps the truth will release you from believing you were too demanding. You were asking questions because the emotional reality changed without explanation. Perhaps it will release you from believing your final message was ignored carelessly. Your soulmate saved it inside the archive because it became the last honest voice they heard before silence consumed everything. But release does not automatically mean reunion. Your soulmate repeats this several times. The explanation may make their decision understandable without making the relationship reparable. You lived through the consequences without consent. You built strength they did not witness. You may have changed your standards, dreams, and understanding of love. They cannot ask you to return to the person who waited before the silence. They must meet the person the silence helped create. If you choose one conversation, your soulmate wants it to happen somewhere neutral. No surprise arrival. No dramatic public confession. No demand that emotion become an immediate decision. They will bring independent legal confirmation and answer every question they are permitted to answer. You may ask why they did not trust you. You may ask whether protecting your career was worth damaging your heart. You may ask why they signed the second agreement after learning the original accusation was false. They promise not to defend every choice. They say the honest answer to the final question is, because I was more afraid of hearing that you no longer wanted me than I was of continuing to miss you from a distance. That fear controlled another year of both lives. The letter contains an apology to anyone you may now love. Your soulmate says they will not interfere with a healthy relationship. Their past sacrifice does not grant them a permanent claim upon your future. If another person has given you honesty, stability, and respect, your soulmate will not describe that love as an obstacle destiny must remove. They will accept that arriving with the truth does not mean arriving on time. This is one of the clearest signs that the letter is not emotional blackmail. It does not say you must choose them because they suffered. It says they chose suffering without your permission and now accept that the consequence may be losing the future they hope to protect. They also ask you to protect yourself while opening the archive. Verify the sender. Do not provide payment or sensitive information. Confirm the legal office through independent records. Genuine evidence can survive careful examination. The truth does not need panic to remain true. Once verified, save only what you wish to keep. You do not have to read every document tonight. The archive can be preserved before the deadline and examined slowly later. The urgency belongs to the file, not to your emotional decision. Your heart does not expire tomorrow. Forgiveness does not expire tomorrow. Any possible relationship does not need to be decided tomorrow. Only the digital preservation period ends. Your soulmate included this distinction because they remember how often urgency controlled earlier choices. The organization used a one-night deadline to force a confession. Fear used photographs and warnings to rush them into silence. They do not want the final truth delivered through the same pressure. Save the evidence if you choose. Then breathe. Let the facts settle before deciding what they mean. You may feel anger when you learn powerful people used your name to frighten someone who loved you. You may want to expose everyone immediately. The letter asks you to avoid impulsive public action. Independent legal professionals are already handling the record. Sharing incomplete documents could affect people who were not involved or create new complications. Truth should create freedom, not another uncontrolled crisis. Your soulmate is not asking you to protect the organization. They are asking you to protect yourself. You may also feel anger toward them. Allow it. Do not silence that anger because the sacrifice sounds romantic. They chose your reputation over direct honesty, but they did not ask what you valued more. They watched you search for answers and remained hidden. They allowed rumors of another relationship to reach you. They signed a second agreement after evidence created another option. Love can exist beside failure. Acknowledging failure does not deny love. The most mature response may hold both. Your soulmate loved you deeply. Your soulmate also hurt you deeply. They protected part of your future. They damaged another part. They were pressured. They still made choices. The complete truth requires every sentence. The final recording begins after the written letter ends. Your soulmate's voice sounds calmer than in the first missed calls. They say they recorded it recently, after learning the archive would close. They do not cry or beg. They speak as someone who has finally stopped hiding behind the story of sacrifice. They say, "I do not know whether hearing this will comfort you or reopen something you worked hard to heal. I am sorry that the truth still asks something from you after my silence already asked too much. I need you to know that you were never unwanted. You were never replaced. You were never responsible for the accusation. The people involved used my love for you as leverage because they knew threatening your future would control me." Then they pause. But love that can be used as leverage is love that has not yet learned courage. I should have trusted you with the danger. I should have allowed us to decide together. I did not. They explain that after the legal record is corrected, they plan to leave the professional circle connected to the case permanently. They have found different work, returned money tied to the settlement, or separated themselves from people who pressured them. They are not making these changes to prove devotion. They are making them because continuing to benefit from silence would contradict everything the truth has revealed. They have also contacted the actual leaker and required them to provide a full statement. Forgiveness may come later, but accountability comes first. Your soulmate will no longer carry responsibility for someone else's fear. This is the transformation they hope you will observe if you choose contact. Not a dramatic speech. Not the gift saved for years. Not the length of the letter. The evidence will be whether they continue choosing truth when truth costs comfort. They know one confession cannot rebuild trust. The original connection was damaged through thousands of silent hours. Any repair would require hundreds of ordinary honest moments, answering direct questions, respecting boundaries, remaining consistent, and refusing to disappear when shame returns. If you decide the relationship cannot be rebuilt, your soulmate still hopes the letter repairs something inside you. They want you to stop connecting their disappearance with your worth. They want you to know you were loved during every month when love appeared absent. But more importantly, they want you to understand that someone else's hidden love was never a standard you were required to accept. You deserved visible courage. You deserved participation in decisions affecting your heart. You deserved the truth before it became history. Do not lower those standards because the explanation is powerful. Let the explanation correct the past. Let consistent behavior determine the future. The archive contains a final page labeled, "Open Last." It is shorter than every other document. Your soulmate writes that they once imagined filling it with promises about the life both of you could still create. They removed those promises because the future is no longer theirs to write alone. The page says, "I left you a secret love letter because secrecy was the only space I believed the truth could survive. I understand now that love should never need to remain secret from the person it belongs to. Tomorrow this archive may disappear, but I do not want another deadline to control you. Save it only if knowing the truth helps you. Answer only if answering respects your peace. Forgive me only if forgiveness becomes honest. I loved you then. I love you now. But your freedom is the first part of that love I am finally learning to respect." Underneath, there is no dramatic signature. Only the date when the first agreement was signed and the date when the final restriction ends. Between those dates are the years both of you lost. After the second date is empty space. Your soulmate has left that space for your choice. If you preserve the letter, do it because you deserve the complete record of what happened. Do not preserve it because you fear destiny will punish you for ignoring a sign. This is not a supernatural command. It is a documented confession from someone who made painful choices and wants the truth to reach the person most affected. If you respond, respond from clarity. You can say, "I received the archive and need time." You can ask for legal verification. You can request no direct contact. You can agree to one conversation. You can choose not to reopen anything. Every one of these responses is valid. Your soulmate's sacrifice does not remove your boundaries. Their regret does not create your obligation. Their love does not cancel your present life. The truth gives you power precisely because it returns the decision other people once removed. Comment, "I receive truth without abandoning myself," if you are ready to let complete information replace the painful stories created by silence. Like this video if you believe genuine love must become honest action instead of remaining hidden inside sacrifice, and subscribe for more messages that remind you that another person's fear may delay the truth, but it can never define your worth. Your soulmate left you a secret love letter, and tomorrow the archive containing it will disappear. The letter reveals that they never rejected you, never replaced you, and never believed you were unworthy. They accepted responsibility for a hidden scandal because powerful people threatened to place your name inside it. But the greatest confession is not what they sacrificed. It is what they finally understand. Protecting someone's future means very little if you destroy their ability to trust their own heart while doing it. The evidence is waiting. The truth is complete. And for the first time, what happens next belongs entirely to you.